What happened?
I think there's something here that's not meant to be.
What did you see?
I saw a nun. What's she doing? She's standing there.
This thing, it's come back for me.
This demon was once an angel. Rejected by God.
This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man. And today, opening weekend, Saturday, September 9th, 2023, I went in and I saw the new movie, part 2 of the continuation, or kind of maybe the precursor of the Conjuring universe, James Wan's Conjuring universe, where we have been waiting for these Nun movies to come out, basically. Started with the Nun Part 1 in, I think, 2019. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. The Nun was kind of teased in the Annabelle... Was it the Annabelle movie? Maybe a little bit of the Conjuring. It's all in that little bit of the universe, I guess. It takes place in that same James Wan horror kind of universe. I went and I saw The Nun Part 2. And remember our rating scale, shock a thumbs up. It's good to see, I recommend it. Shock a thumbs down, it's junk, I don't recommend it. And for The Nun Part 2, it is overall a shock a thumbs down. Now what does that mean? Now I admit I was a little tired going in to watch this film. However, I was falling asleep during this film. You really have to have watched The Nun Part 1 really recently for this to have much of a hook to it for The Nun Part 2. This is a sequel to what I believe was the 2019, before the pandemic, sequel to The Nun, where basically we saw a young woman, Tessa Formiga, and a priest come in to look at these suicides or murders going on in this covenant in the outskirts of France, and using what turned out to be the blood of Christ from that movie, Tales from the Crypt Part 2. That's basically they were able to stop this demon from continuing to kill. However, in Part 2 we discover, see, that's what I'm saying. You have to see, because if you don't remember that demon being stopped by the blood of Christ, this artifact from the church, again, just watch Tales from the Crypt Part 2, the movie, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's the same thing. But again, like I said in my review of The Nun, it was used much, much better in Tales from the Crypt, the movie Part 2. Yeah, so using this artifact from the church, the priest and this young nun were able to stop a demon. However, it turns out here in Part 2 that they were not actually able to defeat the demon. Although they defeated the demon, they did not destroy the demon, as the demon escaped in one of the people, the caretaker, one of the caretakers, the groundkeepers of the nunnery, and wherever he has gone here since in Part 2, priests and nuns have been dying mysteriously. And we come to find out, while the church calls back into service Tessa Formiga's nun character to confront this, as the priest has apparently died from the first movie. So it is just up to her. And come to find out that this demon has, she finds out, has been, people have been dying, and how, and all over France. And essentially they find out how this demon's been traveling around is that it had possessed the gardener or the caretaker from The Nun Part 1, who had rescued Tessa Formiga's character at the end of that movie and departed ways from her. Come to find out he's possessed. Wherever he goes, everybody's been dying. At least these nuns, priests, etc., in horrific ways. Tessa Formiga discovers that these nuns and priests that had been killed were actually the descendants of Saint Lucy, patron saint of the blind, and that this demon, the Nun II, I guess, demon, taking on the form of an evil nun, is actually looking for these eyes, this artifact, these eyes of Saint Lucy, which is left over from, basically the remains of Saint Lucy after she had died, which turns out to be a powerful Catholic artifact, very much like the blood of Christ, which seems very powerful. But now, why is this demon after it? Unclear, but when this demon gets it, seems to increase their demonic power. How that works, with it being a holy relic, not completely certain. So strike number 1 for it. Strike number 2, there's a lot of build up towards that, which is kind of sweet in a way. I mean, we see the caretaker befriending this boarding school and student and her mother. Come to find out he's the possessed person that this demon nun is in. Tessa Formiga comes to try to basically find these eyes of Saint Lucy to try to exorcise the demon. She finds it. She attempts to exorcise the demon, thinking she lets her guard down. The demon, through the caretaker, grabs these eyes and takes control of them. But come to find out, Tessa Formiga's young nun character is actually a descendant of Saint Lucy, and thus has enough power in her own self to defeat this demon, apparently. Even though this demon's gotten even more powerful from getting the eyes of Saint Lucy. Plenty of jump scares in here. More, by the numbers. You pan left. You look right, and then you go back left, and the nun's there, spooking you out. The evil nun does conjure up some other demons, like a little goat boy monster or something, to chase the other students around. Well, she's taken on Tissa Farmiga's character. You get some more backstory, again, of Tissa Farmiga's character, but honestly, it really turns out to be somewhat irrelevant. And of course, this leads eventually into the Conjuring universe with, the Conjuring guys when those demon hunters or myth guys are called in from the very first Conjuring movie. So very, very loosely connected to the Conjuring universe overall. I mean, other than, the demon, this demon's probably related to the Annabelle demon, which was from the Conjuring, etc., etc. I just found it extremely boring. The third act resolves fairly well with some action, but again, up until that point, it was pretty much a snore fest, and I was having trouble staying awake. As they're researching St. Lucy, these eyes, and going into their backstory of Tessa Farmiga's characters, her mother, and realizing that she is a descendant of St. Lucy. And then we get more of her husband. Her father, Tissa Farmiga's father, had locked up her mother in the loony bin because she'd seen these visions, the same visions that were passed down to her, that makes her an excellent nun exorcist, I guess, which the Vatican calls her into service once again, having dealt with this demon before, and being the only one alive who has dealt with it, to deal with it again, which she does. I'm sorry if that didn't sound very exciting. All through this movie, before this movie, I wanted to make some kind of reference to, they should have got Whoopi Goldberg in this movie. If James Wan knew what he was doing, he could have got Whoopi Goldberg, because she was the nun on the run for some of those movies, and it would have been good to have her in that. As kind of a comic relief. But having watched this movie, I can't really justifiably bring that into, because this movie is so boring, other than the very end. So it really I don't think Whoopi Goldberg would have helped this movie. All I was thinking about all through this movie was how much better Russell Crowe and his movie, The Pope's Exorcist, was better than this one. That I enjoyed it more. There was more detail and backstory with his character and his exorcisms than this one, despite having a whole other movie, previously to back this up. And, and all of the Conjuring universe. It just kind of fell a little flat to me. Maybe if you're a big fan of the whole Conjuring universe, but if you've watched my review, I didn't like any of the Annabelle prequels. I didn't like the other Nun. And I don't like this movie either. Again, shock a thumbs down. Pope's Exorcist, which is now on Netflix, is much better of a watch. Once the Nun II goes to streaming, I'm certain it'll get an audience and probably, get a little bit more views there. Especially when it's streaming or VOD, it'll probably do better. But I don't see it beating out Denzel Washington's Equalizer 3, continued from last week. I just don't think it's a strong enough movie, The Nun II, and I can't recommend it to you But if you want to watch it on streaming, that's probably your best bet right there. All right. Mahalo and aloha.